You know what sailors fear most? Not storms, not rocks, not even the deep. We fear the thing we cannot see that's watching us from below. Close your eyes if you wish. The sea cares not whether they be open or closed. What follows beneath, it sees you either way. March of 1876. The HMS Prosperity, a British merchant vessel, 200 feet of iron and oak, steam-powered, modern for her time, was making the run from Cape Town to Rio de Janeiro. Routine voyage, fair winds, clear skies, the South Atlantic in her kinder months. Captain Wesley Thorne commanded her. 30 years at sea, that man. Sailed every ocean worth naming, seen whales the size of 3-masted ships, seen storms that'd make your soul weep. But on the 3rd day out from Cape Town, he saw something that made those 30 years feel like nothing at all. It started with the lookout. Young lad, sharp eyes, called down from the crow's nest just past dawn. Shadow in the water, captain, starboard side running deep. Now, in those tropical waters, crystal clear, blue as a drowned man's lips, you could see down 50, 60 feet on a calm day. And there it was, a shape, dark, massive, swimming beneath them. At first they reckoned it a whale, sperm whale perhaps, or a right whale off course. The size seemed about right for a big bull. So they watched it, waited for it to surface, to blow, to breathe. It never did. An hour passed, then 2. The shadow kept pace, never falling behind, never pulling ahead, matched their speed exactly, 8 knots under steam and sail. Captain Thorne, he ordered a course change, 10 degrees to port. The shadow turned with them. Another hour, another course change, 20 degrees starboard this time. The shadow followed. By noon of that first day, the entire crew knew. Word spreads quick on a ship, faster than fire, faster than fever. Something was following them, something that never needed to breathe. That first night, they stopped the engines, let the ship drift, dead in the water. Thought maybe whatever it was would swim on past. They peered over the rails with lanterns. The water was calm, moonless night, black as tar. But in the starlight, they could still see it, directly beneath them, unmoving. One of the crew, a Portuguese sailor, been at sea since he was a boy. He crossed himself and whispered something the others couldn't quite hear. Later they asked him what he'd said. He told them, "I prayed it would not look up." Day 2, they resumed course, full steam. The shadow resumed as well, still beneath them, still matching speed. Captain Thorne, he took measurements, triangulation from bow to stern using the shadow's outline in the clear water. The thing was over 300 feet long, longer than the Prosperity herself. He wrote in his log, I've read it myself years later in a maritime archive in London. He wrote, "I have sailed every ocean. I have seen whales, sharks and squid of considerable size. What follows us now is none of these. It is aware, it is patient, and God help me. I believe it is curious about what we are. Days 3, 4 and 5 passed the same. The shadow never left. The crew grew quiet, stopped singing their work songs, stopped their evening card games. They'd gather at the rails during their off-watch, just staring down. trying to make out details in that dark shape. Some swore they saw fins, others said no, it was smooth. Some claimed they saw segments like a serpent. Others insisted it was one solid mass. The only thing they all agreed on was that it never moved wrong, never struggled against the current, never adjusted its position, just glided, perfectly still relative to the ship above, as if the water itself was carrying it. Day 6, the youngest crew member, a cabin boy, couldn't have been more than 15. He spent too long staring down at it. 4 hours, they said. 4 hours he stood at that rail, never blinking, never moving. When they finally pulled him away, he didn't speak, didn't respond to his name, just stared ahead with eyes that had seen too much. He stayed mute for 3 full days. When his voice finally returned, he only said one thing. It was looking back. Day 7. Dawn broke red and gold across the South Atlantic. The shadow was still there, but something had changed. Captain Thorne noticed it first. The shadow was closer to the surface, not much, maybe 5 feet higher than the day before, but rising. By midday it had risen another 10 feet. The crew could see it more clearly now, and what they saw. One of the officers, a man who'd fought in naval battles, who'd seen ships burn and men die, he came to the captain and said, "Sir, it has texture." "What kind of texture?" "I don't know, sir. It's not skin, not scales. It's ridged, plated, like armor." By late afternoon, the shadow had risen to within 20 feet of the surface, and that's when they saw it. The eye. Not small, not like a whale's eye, an eye the size of the main mast, circular, pale, unblinking, opening in the depths beneath them. Just one eye, staring up at the hull of the Prosperity. Captain Thorne didn't hesitate. All ahead, full, every pound of steam, now! The Prosperity surged forward, engine screaming, black smoke pouring from her stack. 10 knots, 11, 12, faster than she was built to go. The crew didn't look back, didn't dare. They ran south for 6 hours straight, pushing the engine until the chief engineer begged them to stop before the boilers burst. Finally, as the sun set on that 7th day, they checked the water behind them. Nothing. The shadow was gone. Captain Thorne wrote one final entry in his log that night. "It let us go. I am certain of this. We did not escape. We were released. Whatever followed us for 7 days. It was finished with us, finished examining us. I pray to God I never learn what conclusion it reached." The Prosperity made Rio 3 days later. Half the crew deserted the moment they reached port. The other half never spoke of those 7 days again. Captain Thorne retired from the sea within the year. And as for what followed them, the Admiralty listed it as unidentified marine phenomenon. But I know those waters. I've sailed the South Atlantic more times than I can count. And I've seen shadows there myself, near the Tristan da Cunha Islands. In the deep water between Africa and Brazil. Mine was smaller, perhaps younger, but I learned the same lesson Captain Thorne learned. There's a difference, you see, between something swimming beneath you and something waiting beneath you. The Prosperity. Whatever followed her wasn't swimming, it was escorting. The South Atlantic shadow, it chose not to surface. Perhaps a mercy. Perhaps we simply fled in time. But in the Pacific, in 1952, A Japanese fishing boat had nowhere to run, and what followed them? It wanted a closer look. August of 1952, the North Pacific, 200 miles east of the Japanese coast, a fishing trawler called the Kaiyo Maru. Small vessel, crew of 7, been working those waters for generations. They were hauling in their nets just after dawn. Good catch, they thought. Nets were heavy. But when the nets came up, every fish was dead. Not suffocated. Fish suffocate when nets stay down too long, they know that. Not cut by the nets, not tangled, crushed. Every single fish in those nets had been crushed flat, as if something had pressed down on them from above, or squeezed them from all sides, like they'd been taken to the bottom of the ocean, where the pressure would crumple bone and flesh like wet paper. The captain, Takeshi Yamada, 40 years old, been fishing since he was 12. He looked at those fish and felt his stomach turn cold. "Check the depth," he told his crew. They lowered the line, 50 feet standard depth for that fishing ground. Those fish hadn't been to the bottom, so what had crushed them? One of the crew pointed over the side. "Chuan Chang, there's something down there." They all looked. The water was calm, clear, perfect visibility, and beneath them, perhaps 50 feet down, a shape, too regular to be natural, too large to be believed. It sat there, unmoving, directly beneath their small boat. The captain ordered the engine started. "We leave now." The Kaiyo Maru turned north, full throttle. The crew watched the water. The shape followed, not swimming, not thrashing, just keeping pace. Always exactly 50 feet below the surface, never rising, never falling, like it was fixed at that depth by some invisible law. They tried the radio. Static, pure static, loud and constant with something underneath it. A sound that hurt to hear, like metal scraping metal, but organic somehow. They switched frequencies, static on every channel. The youngest crew member, a boy of 19, he whispered, "It's blocking the signal. It doesn't want us to call for help." No one argued with him. They sailed for 3 hours straight. The shape never fell behind. Never had to speed up or slow down. Just matched them perfectly, as if their speed and its speed were the same thing. Captain Yamada tried every trick he knew. Sharp turns, full stop, zigzag patterns. The shape adjusted instantly, always beneath them, always 50 feet down, always there. On the second day, they stopped trying to outrun it. Fuel was running low, the radio was still dead, and the shape showed no sign of leaving. They drifted, and in the stillness, with the engine quiet, they could hear it. A sound from below, not loud, not aggressive, just a low vibration, steady, rhythmic, like breathing, but too slow. One pulse every 30 seconds. One of the crew, a man who'd survived a typhoon, who'd pulled drowning men from the sea, he started to cry. Not sobbing, just tears running down his face. "I want to go home," he whispered. They all did. Third day, the youngest crew member, the one who'd been staring down at the shape the longest, he suddenly spoke. "It has texture." The others looked at him. "What?" "Look closer. It's not smooth. It has lines, ridges, segments." They looked. He was right. In the clear water, if you looked carefully, the shape wasn't one solid mass. It was plated, sectioned, like armor, or like something built. "It's watching us," the young man said. "Can't you feel it? It's watching, learning." That night, the third night, the worst thing happened. All the lights on the Kayo Maru failed, every single one. Navigation lights, cabin lights, instrument lights, all gone. Simultaneous failure. The crew stood in complete darkness on the deck. No moon, no stars behind the clouds, just black. And then the ocean began to glow. Bioluminescence, not from the shape, from the water itself, soft, pulsing, blue-green. It spread outward from the ship in ripples, like the ocean was breathing, like it was alive. And in that glow, they saw it clearly for the first time. The shape was enormous, 60 feet long at least, maybe more, segmented, plated, ridged, and it wasn't moving, not at all. It just floated there, suspended, as if held by invisible strings. The young crew member grabbed the captain's arm. "Chuan Chang, look at the segments, look at the spacing." The captain looked. The segments were evenly spaced, too evenly, mathematical, deliberate. "That's not an animal," the young man whispered. The glow lasted for 1 hour. Then the lights on the boat came back on, all at once, and when they looked down, the shape was gone. The captain ran to the sonar, turned it on with shaking hands. The screen showed something. A massive void, descending, not slowly, falling, no, not falling, diving, straight down. The sonar tracked it for 30 seconds, 1,000 feet, 3,000 feet, 6,000 feet, 10,000 feet, then the sonar lost it. Too deep to track, too deep to measure. Captain Yamada wrote in his report to maritime authorities, "It was not hunting us. We were too small to hunt. It was observing, like a scientist studies an insect. We were examined, then dismissed. I do not know which is more frightening, being prey or being insignificant." The Kayo Maru limped back to port on the 4th day. Radio worked fine once they were away from that spot. Lights never failed again, but 3 of the crew never fished again. And the youngest, the one who'd noticed the segments, he had nightmares for years. Always the same dream, the shape rising, coming up to see them, and when it surfaced, he'd wake up screaming. He never told anyone what he saw in those dreams. The Pacific is the deepest of all oceans, miles deep in places, miles of darkness where pressure would crush a man like an eggshell. What lives down there, we can't know, not truly. But sometimes it comes up, not to feed, not to hunt, just to look, to remind us that we float on the surface of their world. And when they're done looking, they return to depths we'll never reach. Two shadows, 2 centuries, both vanished into depths we'll never reach. But the third was different, because in 2003 we had cameras, we had sonar, we had proof, and what they documented in the Arctic, it proved the old sailors right all along. November of 2003, the Norwegian research vessel Polaris, Arctic Ocean, 78 degrees north, climate research mission measuring ice thickness, ocean temperatures, currents, modern ship, advanced equipment, satellite communication, sonar that could map the ocean floor, underwater cameras, ROVs, remote-operated vehicles, everything you'd need to document the deep. And document it, they did. The Polaris had been in Arctic waters for 3 weeks when they picked up the sonar contact. Large mass, moving parallel to their course. Dr. Helena Strand gave one sealed testimony. It was buried in classified files, but years later, parts of it leaked. She wrote, "In 30 years of marine research, I've classified hundreds of species. I know how life moves in the ocean. I know behavior patterns, evolutionary markers, biological limitations. What followed us for 11 days, it violated every principle of marine biology." But worse than that, the markings, they weren't random, they were systematic, measured. We weren't being followed by animals, we were being followed by something that uses tools, something that writes, something that's been down there longer than we've been up here. The Arctic. I avoid those waters when I can. Too much ice, too much darkness beneath the ice. But I've heard the stories from whalers, from explorers, from research ships in recent years. Something lives in the deepest trenches beneath the ice shelf. Something that predates our charts, our maps, our entire understanding of the sea. The old sailors had a name for it. Hafgufa, they called it. The sea reek, the one that dwells beneath. Modern men, with all their technology, they've just confirmed what we always knew. We share the ocean, and we're not the elder tenants. Three ships, 3 shadows. 3 times something ancient reminded us that the ocean's depths are not empty. They're watching, they're waiting, and sometimes they follow. What swims beneath us, we may never know, but it knows we're up here, floating, fragile, temporary. Now, these be tales I've gathered from the wind and waves. Some say they happened, others say they're just sailors' yarns. Truth and legend mix like oil and water at sea. What matters is what they teach us about the deep. The ocean is deep, traveller, deeper than ye can imagine, and deep down there, in the crushing black, things live that have never seen the sun, things that have never surfaced, things that have been counting. May your bow cut through calm waters, and may whatever follows ye from below remain curious, rather than hungry. I'll remain here, lantern lit, listening to the deep water hymns, and waiting for the next time your sails appear on the horizon. If these tales found you well, perhaps you'll join me when the fog returns. There are so many more shadows beneath the waves. Too many for one voyage. Good winds to you, and may the depths stay beneath you, dear traveller of dark seas, until the next journey.